Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. It's Tuesday, and in a few moments, you'll get to hear my thoughts and feelings on episode 5 of the Kings of Napa. And I must say, the way that tonight's episode ended had my jaw on the floor for several minutes afterwards. But before I get into that, I want to give a special thanks to everyone who watched my last Kings of Napa review, and to the new subscribers who liked my review. I truly appreciate any and every form of support on here because it keeps me motivated to keep pushing out content on a consistent basis. So thanks again, but without any further delay, let's jump right into the review. Episode 5, entitled How Stella Got Her Pinot Back, follows 4 main storylines. 1. The continued hunt for the extortionist. 2. Dana and Rose's plans for the future. 3. August and Vanessa's scheme to get Bridget back. And 4. Yvette makes herself useful for the family. First, let's talk about the hunt for the extortionist. In this episode, surprise, surprise, we learn that Otis isn't the extortionist. When Otis wakes up from his coma, he tells August that he isn't the extortionist, but he was stealing grapes from the vineyard so that he could start his own business. It turns out that Reggie promised to help Otis start his own company, but Reggie reneged on the deal. So Christian meets up with August and shares that he has a theory behind Bridget being the possible extortionist. Kelvin later pointed out that Christian's evidence to support his theory is circumstantial at best, but it doesn't stop August from getting Quincy to get on top of things. But we as the audience already know that Bridget isn't the extortionist. The real extortionist was watching August, Dana, and Bridget as they made the first payment a few episodes back. Could Bridget be working with the extortionist? That remains to be seen. Because later in the episode, Bridget receives a call from an unknown white man, and he asks her why she left Sean and Sean because he thought that she needed them. I think Bridget has something else up her sleeve, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Quincy later meets up with August and Christian, letting them know that the extortionist was using a phone that was pinging off of a tower near where Bridget lives. This causes August to give Quincy the green light to run surveillance on Bridget. Speaking of surveillance, as August is updating Kelvin on the extortionist developments, she finds the cameras that Quincy installed in her room at Dana's request. And when August confronts Quincy about it, he wastes no time dry snitching on Dana. Now for me, this was one part of the episode that I did not like, and it's mainly because Quincy is not only incompetent and unprofessional, but he has no loyalty to his friends. But then again, he is definitely on the right show. So when it's all said and done, Christian ultimately tells Dana about his theory about Bridget, and all the King children agree to keep a watchful eye on Bridget. Now let's talk about Dana and Rose. In their first scene together, we see Rose buttering Dana up to make up for her voting against Dana's dessert wine, or so we thought. The real reason Rose was buttering Dana up was because she wanted him to be open to the idea of going to a fertility clinic so that they could start having a baby. Dana later reveals that he was afraid of passing his dwarfism on to his child, but nevertheless, Dana agrees to go to the clinic. Now I found this storyline to be interesting because to me, it humanizes Dana and made him feel very sympathetic. He is the only family member on the show that is considering having kids, but he's afraid that his future child would have to go through what he had to endure as a little person. And to me, that's very relatable to a lot of people. Moving on to August and Vanessa's grand scheme to bring Bridget back into the fold. Early on in the episode, Grace calls August in for a meeting. Grace lets August know that Christian mishandled her grapes, which cost the company $500,000 in profit. August then meets up with Vanessa and lets her know that Bridget needs to come back to the company expeditiously, and shockingly Vanessa seems to be on board with it. August and Vanessa then meet up with Bridget and they offer her old job back. And at this point in the episode, I was shaking my head at how calm Bridget was. Vanessa treated Bridget pretty horribly over the past 4 episodes, and August reneged on the first deal which Bridget should have gotten her job back. So to me, Bridget should have asked for the world from the Kings in order for her to consider coming back. Instead, all it took for Bridget to leave Sean and Sean and to come back to her old job was Vanessa offering to take Bridget with her to a wine convention in New York. And while in New York, Vanessa and Bridget make a pit stop to see Vanessa's mother, who is in a mental health facility. Vanessa lets Bridget know that her mother had a nervous breakdown after witnessing the death of Vanessa's father, and Vanessa blames Melanie for all of it. Vanessa is essentially putting Bridget against Melanie the same way she believed Melanie put Dana against her, and it's pretty messed up to say the least. But I don't think Bridget fully took the bait from Vanessa because she seems to be one step ahead of everybody else on the show. The last storyline was that of Yvette making herself useful. For some reason, Yvette is still hell-bent on coming back into the King household as if she doesn't make enough money to move somewhere else. Vanessa then tells Yvette that if she can score the distributor for the dessert wine, then she can move back in. Yvette meets with the distributor, who seems more interested in her yams, melons, and cookie jar than he does in the actual wine, but Yvette sealed the deal, in more ways than one, to secure the distributor, allowing her to move back into the house. Now we gotta talk about the ending of this episode. In the previous review, I shared my theory that Bridget was going to get close to Rose and ultimately try to convince her to leave the company so that they could start their own business. But when Bridget revealed that she knew that Reggie was her father for quite some time, and when she planted a huge kiss on Rose, I was just as shocked as I was aroused. Can I get an amen? I mean, the scene was pretty hot and steamy, but Bridget essentially tempted Rose to cheat on Dana and to leave the King family business. And just in popular fashion, Dana just so happened to be watching his wife and sister swab a little DNA during this whole encounter on the security cameras, and he doesn't seem to be too happy about it. But in terms of the extortion business, I still don't believe that Bridget is the extortionist. I believe that Bridget agreed to come back to the family so that she could gain access to the grapes that she was growing in secret a few episodes ago. Once she gets those grapes, and possibly convinces some of the vineyard workers to come work for her, then she will leave the King family and get Rose to be a perfect partner for her. But that's just my theory. Now, before watching the ending of this episode, I was going to give it a rating of 5. But after watching the twist at the end, I'll give it a 7. I still think the acting is subpar, and the writing is a little lazy at points in the episode, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't entertained. I can accept the good with the bad because there are only 3 episodes left before the end of the season. But this marks the end of my review. Please feel free to let me know what you thought about the review or the episode in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to reply to each and every comment. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.